All right, welcome to the latest edition of our Bengals training camp reports. Paul Eater Jr., Jay Morrison here with you. It is day 11. 1-1, that's right. Day 11, and it was
Fight Club.
Active. Yeah, Fight Club. Normally you don't talk about Fight Club, but
Yeah.
that would make this a pretty boring video. So we're going to go ahead and talk about Fight Club, which is what happened today at the Bengals practice. You had multiple incidents. Go ahead and check the Twitter feeds of just about everybody that covers the Bengals. I know I have a couple of the fights that were out there that happened today, but Ted Karras in the middle of it, Logan Wilson. It kind of starts with Logan Wilson throwing a punch at Ted Karras, and then bodies were flying all over the place. It happened again later after a hit sent Andre Yoshivas to the ground, and you had Karras running after people at that point, yelling, "This is effing ridiculous!" And there was really 3 or 4 different incidents of whether it was from tackling they felt like was over the line, blocking they felt like it was over the line. A lot of things were over the line today, and you saw a lot of fights happening in this practice today. A hot one of the last ones that you'll get before they start to enter the game and joint practice period. Jay, what's your takeaway from this?
Yeah, it's not so much the fights and how they started, who started them, who reacted, all that. It was like the coaches almost enjoyed it. You know, they just you're in this stage now. I'm past this stage with my kids. You're in this stage now. Sometimes they just start fighting, and you just sit back, and as long as one of them doesn't pick up a toy and use it as a weapon, you just let them settle it and get it out of their system. And that's what this felt like. The coaching staff never stopped practice. It never sounded like they even addressed it. Maybe they just thought the players are going to work it out, and they didn't. It kept happening. Maybe they were as surprised as the rest of us were that Logan Wilson was the one that started it. Yeah. That would have been the last guy you would have expected to start it. But I thought that was odd. And maybe it was a get it out of your system now before we go to Chicago for joint practices next week. Because you do this next week, we're getting fined. We saw that today where teams got fined for having a fight at a joint practice. So I'm not saying that's what their thought process was, but that's what it seemed like, where they just didn't seem interested. Now, they did address it after practice. It was a very long post-practice talk, and all the players took a knee. They were listening intently to what Zach was saying. But as it was happening, the coaches just seemed like, let it go. And it was funny because we talked to Marion Hobby afterward. He said they got $1,000 worth of shit on. If they want to hit their hands on $1,000 worth of shit, just time for me to go get some water.
Veteran coaches know this is an opportunity for an extra long water break. But yeah, my takeaway on this is that, you're going to have a lot of, well, what does this mean? Something. Does this mean that this team has more edge, is more intense? This camp is more intense, and I don't necessarily think that's the case. And Ted said to us afterwards, just because a team is fighting doesn't mean they have an edge or have more intensity, But I think that one thing is true, though. The defense is trying to play with more edge. The offense is sick of losing. They've done a lot of losing in these practices. The defense has been taking it to them. There has been trash talk. They do still feel last year. Like, all of that stuff, I think, bubbles up. They do know 3 straight years, 0-2 starts. Like, that stuff is weighing on them. And then sometimes it's been 3 weeks and it's hot. Okay. And I think there's something. I'm not saying that this means that, they're more intense, but I'm not saying it's nothing. I do think that there is an undercurrent here of it symbolizing a team that is feeling it and is feeling like they want to amp it up a little bit more coming off of what happened last year.
And they haven't played the starters in the preseason. The starters know they're playing Saturday night. Maybe this is just their way of kind of getting themselves up and ready to go and get physical. There's just a lot that plays into it. I wouldn't read a whole lot into it.
Yeah, a lot of times it's just, I didn't like the way you came at me there, and now I decided to throw a punch because I'm just kind of sick of it. And and then we all blow it out to be more than it is. But still, I'm not saying nothing. Would you have a play, though, from today?
Yeah, so it may have been the ultimate haymaker thrown today, and it was Joe Burrow taking a deep shot for T. Higgins, and Ted Karras even told us, after the third, I don't know, I lost track, third or fourth skirmish, and he went back in there. He's like, man, Joe, just throw a deep one into the end zone. And I don't know whether he was planning on doing it anyhow. Maybe it was the look. Maybe it was what Ted said. But Burrow took a deep shot for T. Higgins, connected. I had the video of it. It's on my Twitter feed. It was one of those things. It was a hotly debated play, which is another reason I was picking it in the post-game, the media room, because, yes, Joseph Osai probably would have sacked Joe Burrow if it was a real game. And, yes, Jordan Battle probably would have dislodged the ball from T. Higgins. They didn't call it a touchdown. They put the ball down where Battle would have hit Higgins. But it was kind of Joe Burrow's way of saying, enough of this nonsense. I'm not going to go in there and take punches or throw punches, but I'm going to hit you with what I do best. And it was one of his best passes of the day, of many.
I thought this was the best day for Burrow to Higgins. And he, he is the ultimate counterpunch. He's the haymaker. Is you can go and you can fight and draw lines in the sand all you want to. It can be Joe Burrow coming up and dotting you up. And my play is similar. Did the same thing after the big first fight between Logan Wilson and Ted Karras. The next pass thrown was to the back corner of the end zone, a touchdown over the top to Kendrick Pryor over top of Cam Taylor-Britt, a beautiful throw to the back corner. And we've seen Burrow make some of those red zone throws. He was making a bunch of throws again today. It's the same idea of what you're talking about. It's that here's the answer. This team, that will always be their counterpunch. And he had a couple of those today, and I thought had one of his best days. All right. Thing that they say. Things were said today. Yeah. Lots of things were said. Which one are you picking?
So mine, it doesn't really go to the fights, but it kind of speaks to the whole, I don't know, atmosphere, the attitude of this team. And it was Ted Karras talking about last year was a hard pill to swallow. We're talking about being in the AFC Championship game 2 years in a row, and then we don't even make the playoffs. He said it affected a lot of guys personally. It affected me personally. Guys have come back ready to go. And I think that is kind of that attitude was a part of what you saw today, where they are ready to go. It has been a very competitive practice or training camp with the practices, with the defense winning a lot of it, the offense wanting to respond. And I just thought it was a really interesting quote from Ted, who always offers great perspective on these kind of things.
Yeah, and I thought, Ted certainly is amongst a lot of players I think you hear that from. And I think that on the defensive side, they feel very, I don't want to put words in their mouth, but there's an embarrassment from what went on the defensive side of the ball last year. And none of them feel like that represents who they are. And so some of the stuff that you've seen, and you've seen a lot of trash talk from them. And we've talked a lot about how the communication has been so much better and they've made more plays defensively. Yeah. I think a lot of that stems from them showing up ready to go and ready to kind of redeem themselves from what they put on film last year. Mine is along those lines, and it's from Jermaine Pratt. He was just kind of, everyone was talking to him because he was in the middle of the one there at one point. He had a big scrum around him. You just see him kind of smiling in the middle of it, like, what are we talking about? This is football. What are we talking about? That's always kind of Jermaine Pratt's attitude, I feel like, towards this stuff. Who's just, he's as physical and talks as much trash in practice as maybe anybody on the team. He has been all camp. But I think that at the end of it, we're all going to talk about all this stuff. But what are we talking about? Yeah, this is football out here, and that's the type of stuff that happens in a football practice. But the good news is, they sound like a bunch of guys that are ready to hit somebody else, and that's basically all they're going to do from this point forward. 5 of these between games and the joint practices, 5 of them in 15 days against other teams. You're really going to learn about what the Bengals have to offer from this point forward. That will start on Saturday with the game against Tampa Bay. One more practice inside of the stadium tomorrow. We'll bring you a recap of what happens there. My guess is it won't be anything near like what we saw happen out there today. But we'll bring it to you anyway. That's what we do. We're here for you. So thanks everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next time.